Okay, we're all really busy, obviously kicking it off with all the things that you ladies have done and then having families. What are some strategies that you have to create nutritious meals at home for your family, for your kids?
Oh, sure. Let's do it. So I use the Fab Four to structure all of our family meals. And the Fab Four is protein, fat, fiber, and greens. And you can think of that like looking at the plate. Where is the source of protein? Did I use a healthy fat like olive oil? Is there guacamole or avocado on the plate? Olives. Maybe there's like a pesto, like a nut-based fat. And then I look for the veggies. So the veggies are going to load up your plate with fiber and greens. And with kids, it can get a little bit tricky, but that's the structure I use with every meal. I am not Ina Garten. I am not Giada. It is simple sheet pan dinners, whole chicken, burgers on a frying pan. If I can get my husband to barbecue, great. But the thing that really makes eating and cooking easy in my house is what I call meal prep light. And I talk about it a lot in my second book. And this is, you go to the farmer's market or you go to the grocery store and you have all these great intentions to cook for your family, but then the celery sits in the green bag with the little tie thing around it. And then you go back and find it a few weeks later and you're like, shoot, nobody ate that. So what we do with meal prep light is I'll bring home stuff from the grocery store, from the farmer's market, and I immediately prep it in a light way. That means rinse and chop and put in glass containers. Maybe I'm using freezer bags or those like silicone bags so that if I want to throw the veggies out on a sheet pan to roast, it's done in seconds. And I always get my kids involved. So we have 2 kitchen towers. If you don't have one, please, if you have kids, invest, because that brings them up to counter level. And I'll have them do the olive oil on the veggies, shake the seasonings. I can't tell you how many times my very picky second has taken a piece of raw cauliflower that has olive oil and seasoning on the tray and tried it. Like, this is where exposure and modeling for your kids really helps. So that meal prep light would include like prepping all the veggies, and then I'll either make a large protein or small proteins, like a batch of meatballs or chicken slice that'll be in the fridge for lunch boxes or to throw together something quick. Maybe it's hard-boiled eggs. And then for me, because I love condiments and dressing, and that just makes life so much more fun, I will make like a dressing batch for the week or a pesto batch or a peanut sauce, because let's be honest, my kids get protein and veggies off a sheet pan more than I like to admit. And so if I have something fun for them to dip, they're more involved and they eat more. So that's like my tried and true, because you won't find me in the kitchen meal prepping for 8 hours for a week. I don't want to eat that food in 2 days. It's not for me, but for those that do it and love it, is a great way to guarantee that you're getting protein and veggies in. I'd rather find ways to make something quick at home the night of, or even earlier in that afternoon. I realize I have the flexibility to do that sometimes.
My strategy is always about meal prep. I'm actually a little bit opposite, because I'm like all about, let's grill off a bunch of chicken that I can turn into different things over the next few days. My kids come home. I have a 17, a 15, and an 8-year-old. So they are like, my son is 6'3", I was just saying, and he is like, I want to eat everything. And my daughter is very similar too. So it's all about strategies of just keeping my refrigerator as full as possible. My new book is called Meal Prep Magic, and it gives you all of the strategies for how do you make ahead meals? How do you meal prep? For me, it's on Sundays. I go to the Hollywood Farmers Market. I have for 20 plus years. And I even take my kids with me. Actually, 2 of my kids work at the market now at a vendor, because they love the exposure and they love, seeing the fruits and vegetables. And I think that that's always been a big part of it for Weelicious, and everything that, I've created in family food. We've got so many questions. I'm just going to keep going on, because we could ramble.
Perfect. Well, you touched on it a little bit, Kelly, and I'm curious what your perspective is on this. Is food modeling. How important is it to model what you're eating for your kids? And your kids are older, right? So like, have you seen how that's affected what they wanted to eat, their choices that they make, especially now that maybe they're buying some of their own food or maybe making some of their own food?
Yeah, I mean, Weelicious started right after I went to culinary school in New York and worked in restaurants and catering companies. And then I had my son, and I was like, what do I feed you? I have no idea how to get a kid to be a great eater. And to some of my children's chagrin, they are my science project. And now I have years, it's interesting that being in this space for so many years now, it used to be about baby food, and quickly you outgrow that. And so now I've gotten to see them really having the exposure, going to the farmers market, including them in everything. So I have videos of all of my kids like pressing the blender, shaking. We have to think about fine motor. Like we're teaching our kids like with their pincher fingers and straws. So my third cookbook is called The Smoothie Project, and it really came after I realized that my son. I was every morning pancakes and waffles and testing recipes, and his health really started to decline. So I started making smoothies every day, and every morning watching fruits and vegetables and protein being the first thing that went into my kids' bodies. And my son's health changed overnight. At that time, my littlest one was about 7 months old, and I would have a smoothie and a straw, and she would be like bobbing her head. And so the next thing you know, I just like put her on the counter with the smoothie, and like a science project, we all were like, holy, she was like, zoop, and just, it was like baby food. But I looked at like a single baby food opposed to all of the incredible ingredients that were going into these smoothies. And we were choosing clean ingredients. And that's really the most important, not like these kind of like sugar laden smoothies. And I was like, boom, like first thing in the morning, my kids were like, I was like, fruit, check, vegetable, check, protein, check. At least I knew I had done my job.
You definitely had. That's a great way to start the day. I really like to look at the science of modeling exposure. I think it's really important to understand how what we eat and what our kids are exposed to increases the chances of acceptance. And so there's something called the flavor window, which is from when a child is born until 18 months. This is the period in which flavors are easier to be accepted by children. So if you introduce a food, it may take 6 to a dozen times for them to like it, but it's important to introduce as many foods as you can in this window because they're going to accept more. So, getting that smoothie in and getting all that variety of flavor prior to the 18-month birthday is really important. After the 18-month birthday, into toddlerhood, independence creeps in and the kids are like, no. You're like, great, thanks for that. We'll just eat that later. But
They start throwing everything.
Yeah, it actually doubles. Mm-hmm. So that the amount of time it takes for you for a child to accept that food and like that food doubles. So we can talk about maybe it's 6 to 12 times in the 18-month window, then it's going to double. And we're talking about maybe it takes you 20 to 30 times for your child to accept that food. So here's the crux. Parents and caregivers stop offering food when the child says no 3 to 5 times. What? That's when you go, oh, my child doesn't like broccoli. They said they didn't like broccoli 3 times. I'm going to stop making it. I'm going to stop serving it. And the reality is they still need exposure to that. Exposure means they can pick it up off the grocery store or the farmer's market and put it in the basket or the bag. They can help you break it off the florets and put it on the sheet pan. Exposure doesn't mean that they have to be eating the food, but they won't. You have to model eating that food, and your maybe the other siblings or the people at the table. And we try a bunch of different ways, and we wait. No pressure, not like eat 3 bites of it and then I'll give you dessert. It's exposure and modeling. And it's just, how can you think about modeling and exposure? And what's really crazy is when we tease out the research, I'm looking around the room, lots of moms, right? Where are the dads? Guess what? Their modeling actually has a bigger influence on our kids' behavior than us. So my Instagram is Be Well by Kelly. My husband is Be Bad by Chris. You will find onion rings, beer, pizza, burgers, all the rest. He's a peach. But we have a deal. And that is, he doesn't like to sit down to his meal when the kids are like, I need water. I want more ketchup. I want to get up. He's not calm and relaxed. There's no rest and digest there. And he wants to visit the pantry after dinner anyways. So he's like, I just want to eat my dinner after our kids. Fine. our deal is he sits down and eats the salad and the veggies, and he models that for our kids. And when they go, Dad, why aren't you eating your protein and veggies? He can say, I'm still full from lunch, bud. I want to make sure that I'm getting my veggies in. I'm going to eat that right when you go to bed when I'm doing what he calls his Kenny Bears, which is like, we do the dishes, we clean up the toys, all those things. So get your husband, or if you have a male partner in your family, involved in modeling and exposure. Think about it as a way to get your kids to wash veggies, chop veggies, get them an apron, get them a kid's knife, get them involved as much as possible. And know that if they don't eat celery now, they'll probably try it in college.
Just off of that is a quick anecdote. I worked with this guy and I was cooking asparagus and I was like, oh, do you want to have some asparagus? He's like, I don't like asparagus. I was like, oh, why don't you like it? And he's like, well, my dad didn't like it, so I didn't like it. And I was like, wait, what? And so I was like, please take a bite. And so we went through this exercise and he was like, I think I might like it. But it's so interesting, the psychology of like, if my parent doesn't like it, maybe I don't like it.
Yeah, the exposure is so key, right? And so you touched a little bit, Kelly, on sitting down with your kids and your husband modeling. How important is family meal time for communication, for bonding, for just that time together? And how often throughout the week do you get to do that? What does that look like for you?
You go ahead.
I want both your answers.
For me, it's essential. Especially having older kids, it's not like they're like little and running around. So it's a real time for connection. For me, food in general is the way we all connect. And sometimes it's not even what's on the plate. Being at the dinner table together is essential. And it really does model great eating habits. That's sort of the byproduct. I do a lot of DIY dinners in my house. So my son is vegetarian. He became a vegetarian when he was 5. He has never deviated a single day from that. So we have my daughters are like steak, pork, like meat eaters. So I do a lot of like vegetables, always salad, protein. And that way everyone can kind of make the dinner they want. And then we get to the dinner table and it is that time. We have a 20-minute rule in our family. You cannot leave the table for 20 minutes. And now, I remember there's one of my kids is like speed eat out. And once we set the rule, it was like, we don't even think about it. That's the time. And it is our connective tissue. So we try to eat together, I would say 5 to 6 days a week around activities.
I love that. And I'm stealing that rule. My kids are little. And so they do want to get up. They're like, I ate that one piece of chicken. I'm done. Playroom. And I'm like, sit. But looking at the research, actually, there was a study that came out of Harvard that looked at depression rates, anxiety rates, connection for kids, and they tied it back to family meals. And they found that a minimum of 3 family meals a week had a statistical significant impact on their mental health. And so when I think about what, mental health is, and clearly I'm a mom. We over worry about our children. I want them to be happy and thriving and resilient. I go back to that and I focus on that. And I focus on that with my clients too. And I can think of a specific family that it has a lot of 6 children and slightly overscheduled, and we're working on that. But there is not a time when the 8 of them sit down for a family meal and they have support staff, they have chefs, they have housekeepers, like they're and they want their kids to eat healthier. And the reality is, to get us there, we need to sit down as a family and we need to model that and we need to have conversations. And I'm going to implement the 20-minute rule with them too. So the research is, if you want your child to feel connected, to have the support system, and to support their mental health, food matters, family meals matter.
I'm going to add to the rule because I'm going to adopt that too, but it's 20 minutes without your phone, right?
Yeah. Whoa. It's more than that. No phones at the table. I mean, and there was just a great New York Times article about even holding your phone being on the table, even if it's down, you are sending a message to anyone, your spouse, your children, that what they're saying doesn't matter, because that phone's power is so strong.
You know what? Actually, on a panel here, it was like either last year or 2 years ago, but there was a doctor, and it stuck with me because she shared a lot of research around cell phones, and it was saying having your phone near you in a reachable spot, open, unopened, even if it's somewhere like you can reach, then it's really distracting, and it actually creates Anxiety, exactly. It stimulates your sympathetic nervous system because you know you're in that always on model. And so think about as moms, it's like we're juggling a lot. And so creating some boundaries around time, it really affects mental health. I mean, that's what my specialty is in. And so I second everything you guys are saying. And then when we couple that with eating, we want to be able to eat in that rest and digest place, to be able to properly digest and also create a positive association with food, right? Not that we're eating standing up or eating while we're rushing, because this is when those foundations are set. So for when it comes to kids, I know, Kelly, you mentioned your second's pretty picky. What are ways that you guys have introduced nutritious meals or ingredients to picky eaters? Like, is it hiding it? Is it camouflaging it? What are some strategies you guys have used?
I'm the anti-sneak hide person because I never wanted an 18-year-old who was like, oh my God, I've been eating broccoli all these years, because they thought they were in their brownies or something. So we've always just been about, exposure, and, making sure that the kids know what they're eating. I mean, even during the pandemic, I made sure that my two older kids knew how to make 10 dishes. Because I have fear that they're going to go to college and be like, my mom cooked every meal and I don't even know how to make an omelet. So now even my 8-year-old makes her own eggs, and, we just learn about safe cooking in our house and doing the dishes. That's the one we've just completed. It took about a year, but I was like, those aren't my dishes. Those are your dishes.
That's so good. I feel like I completely agree with you. If we're hiding food and we don't know that it's in the food that we're eating, it's also like a trust issue you're building with your kids. You want to just be completely open. So yeah, it's funny because Sebastian, I kind of took for granted. We were in Brentwood and we were in our apartment. We lived right behind Whole Foods. He was the mayor. I'd roll him over in the stroller. He'd wave at everyone. He knew our checkout guys. He would pick things out. We'd go to the Brentwood Farmers Market. There was so much exposure. And then he'd pop in the kitchen tower and help me cook. And then there's a shift that happens when you have a second and you have a job and you're like, oh, what are we doing for dinner? Okay, I'm making it. And then I'm just like plating it for Toshin, my second. And he's not getting that same calm, fun play. And I'm like, well, why does he not like anything? Well, I'm plating it to him and he has no option. He's not putting it on his plate. And so I just went, wow, I'm like humbled to my knees, made a mistake here. I'm expecting him to be just like his brother. He's not going to be like his brother. He's going to have stronger opinions. And also, I'm not giving him the same exposure, modeling, and calm like environment around food. And so I took a step back and I said, okay, I'm putting the pressure on myself to say, like, please take a bite or please try it. And I just let it go. And I said, forget it. But anytime I'm cooking in the kitchen, I'm like, Toshin, where's my sous chef? And he'll run around from the playroom into the kitchen tower. And it's like, I don't care if he's pulling cilantro leaves off the stems. It is constantly, every single day, I'm looking for him to get involved. And he is, he loves, like most kids, their brain lights up with sugar more than even adults. He wants to make cupcakes with me or muffins, and we will find the alternatives and try to make them a little lower sugar. But I also indulge those things with him to just make him love food and make him love the kitchen.
And even off of that is buy your child a kid-safe knife. They're not expensive. And even if it's not the most beautiful salad you've ever seen, I can pull any of my kids, especially when they were younger. Here's a bell pepper, here's lettuce, here's carrots. And you will watch them unconsciously be talking to you and chopping and eating. And the next thing you know, you're like, well, there's 2 servings of vegetables, gone.
Perfect. And it makes the work easier for you, right? One less thing to do. So you mentioned that your son is vegetarian. And so how do you navigate dietary restrictions or different food preferences as a family of 5 for both of you guys, without falling prey to, making 3 different dinners or something like that?
I think education. I mean, I was like, if you want to be a vegetarian, I support you 100%, but you need to make sure you're eating a Brazil nut every day. So you get selenium. You need to be getting your B vitamins. You need, things that may be harder for vegetarians to get. And that he knows, he's always educated on his protein sources. So he eats plenty of eggs, nuts, seeds, tofu, but a balance too, because I think that a lot of one of my friends is a vegan and she considers herself a junk food vegan because it's very easy to go down that vegetarian vegan road and have just like a lot of fillers opposed to real food.
Yeah, 100%. My kids do eat the protein, fat, fiber, and greens that includes animal protein. So that's not our issue. We do have food allergies. So Sebastian can't have dairy. He couldn't have eggs for a while. Tashin can have those things. Julian, we're still up in the air because he's not even 10 months yet. And we're kind of seeing some eczema, but we're playing with it. So for us, really, the navigation happens outside of our house. So I always have the food that they can eat at home, but I really try to make a concerted effort to chat with their teachers, call or text the mom who's having the birthday party. Like, I don't want to put you out, but I want to make sure that my kids can participate in having something sweet at the party. Or if there's a lot of pizza parties, that's tough for a dairy allergy. So I'll talk with Sebastian, I'll be like, did you want me to get you a vegan cheese pizza, or do you want to like bring the ribs from last night or eat before you go? Like, he's old enough now where he makes decisions and he likes certain things. And so we just indulge that. I think being just clear and honest when your child can't have something and having boundaries is important too. So it's one thing to be like, you can't have that, bud, because you have a dairy allergy. But mommy will always like try to make it right for you. But the hard part gets to the point where like there's a lot of sugar around. And at a certain point, I have to put my foot down and be like, you have baseball and you're getting a treat. You have this birthday party, you're getting a treat. We're at the farmer's market. You can't have the snow cone, and try to find alternative ways to offer him something or to make something at home. So one of my go-tos that I shared even last week was, sure, bud, we can make it at home. Like, that's one of my favorite lines. And it's gotten me out of a jam and a sticky situation where I know the meltdown's going to happen. There's going to be tears. He's going to feel left out. Luckily, Sebastian is a growth-oriented kid, a growth mindset. He's like, how could we make it? What could we do? And I let him have at it. We're using the food processor with the ice. We're figuring out how to make the syrup at home. But there's a lot of fails that happen with that. Like, I've tried to make cinnamon rolls and they look like cinnamon flat cookies. Like, there have been things that he couldn't have but he doesn't care. Like, he's so excited that we're just in the kitchen playing and he gets to be involved and he gets to try it. So don't be afraid to use that line if you need to pause and hold your boundary.
Yeah, so actually piggybacking on that, there's sugar in everything. And I think that being educated, you understand what it does to the brain and what it does to our kids. But there's so much sugar, right? So you don't want to be that mom at birthday parties who's like, you can't have this or you can't have that. I just started sending my son to daycare and we send him with a lunch, but they give him snacks and they give him cookies and different things that I don't serve him at home, So in situations like that, do you have any strategies or advice for navigating understanding that we don't want to restrict it and be, those kinds of parents, but also knowing maybe what others don't around like the damaging effects of sugar on children?
Yeah. If you guys haven't read the book Sugar Proof Kids, shout out to Dr. Michael Gorman. He's here somewhere actually, and he's going to be on a panel. He is a phenomenal physician and researcher and talks about the detrimental effects of sugar from learning and retention to mood. And so that really, the science motivates me to lower the amount of sugar in my family. But I think it actually really starts with having hard conversations and policy change. So like Sebastian's his baseball team, I texted out the moms, hey, this is where you can sign up for a snack, and said, like, can we agree that we're just doing one thing with added sugar, if anything, in the snack bag? Because the snack bag can come with the juice, which is a liquid sugar, and it can come with the gummies. And then there's a cutie and a granola bar. And I look at that and I say, there's 0 protein, there's 0 fat, there's 0 fiber. All 4 of those things are going to rocket my kid's blood sugar up. By the way, he only ran to first base. It's not warranting this kind of energy. Right. And that's hard for me. So I think when you talk to the moms, we all feel the same way. It makes it unfair for us to not be able to serve fun, sweet treats at home when they're getting so much sugar out in the world, and one of the things that even my husband and I were talking about last week is I know that I'm going to have to talk to his school. And I know there are a lot of moms that feel the exact same way. And it just starts with like sending the email, sending the text, and having the hard conversation. Like, how do you guys feel about this? If there's someone who feels like, I feel like that's really unfair, I want to bring X, Y, and Z to the game, great. I can have the boundaries with my kid when he's had enough sugar. But most of us are on the same page.
Yeah.
I would say that from Weelicious, when I started Weelicious, the recipes on the website and in the cookbooks, I was always trying to find ways to have less sugar, but still be delicious, or alternative sweeteners like maple syrup or honey or whatever it is. So that was always really important to me. And a lot of people like always love that. But then you have other people who are like, well, I want it to taste like I expect it to. And even with my kids, I found myself where I was probably a little bit more restrictive when my son was younger, my middle child. But as my kids have gotten older and I realized the realities of being a parent, the stresses, I mean, there are 21 meals per week plus snacks per child for 18 years. It is the one thing that none of us signed up for, So I think that when you look at it like that food is just like this constant thing as a parent you're having to think about and deal with. I have found myself over the years being like, no, I want to go to Jenny's. I want a scoop of ice cream. I don't want to deprive you of that. But I also like, what did you have for lunch? Let's talk about that. Because I want to make sure that in a day, or really even in a week, there's not this like, sweets are the reward for good behavior, or a test that you did well on, or something like that. So I look at it kind of like as a week, and how can we have those sweet treats, but have more of the 90% of your diet being the fruits, vegetables, proteins, and really strong fiber foods.
So being busy moms, having 3 kids, you talked a little bit about going to the Hollywood Farmers Market on Sundays. What are ways that you ladies streamline grocery shopping and manage food for your families?
We buy 80% of what we eat in our house at the Hollywood Farmers Market, because they sell everything from eggs, some high quality breads, obviously fruits and vegetables. And then we supplement it with 20%, usually at Trader Joe's. In culinary school, they teach you that you should be shopping at like Trader Joe's and Costco, things like that, where they have very high volume turnover. I think that food costs are through the roof now. There is $1 on every single thing that you buy. My grocery bill looks like I went to Saks or something. I'm like, what's going on? So we're also like trying to think like it's really fun in a way, if you can think of it like that. Like, we're trying to add more beans and legumes, lentils, things into our diets, and teaching the kids about like cost, but also that, the vegetables and good vegetables, like I don't want to be buying vegetables that have been sitting like planes, trains, and automobiles and are just incredibly limp. So buying organic when, it's not cost prohibitive, buying just the amount that you want, so it's not cost prohibitive. We try to by shopping at the farmer's market, like on Weelicious, I try to teach a lot of different strategies, how to make those berries, put a brown paper towel so there's no dyes leaching into them, in a glass container so it grabs the moisture, so that the blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries I buy can last for 2 weeks as opposed to 3 days, from sitting in like a wet pad at the grocery.
I love all your tips.
Me too.
I would say that I automate a lot. So I use Thrive Market a lot for like the snacks that my kids want thrown in their lunchbox. And that's everything from little packs of olives to chopsticks to lupini beans. And I really love them as an automated delivery of things that we use a lot, like Mike's Organics Curry, which is a great like homemade curry paste if you don't know how to make one by yourself. I don't. I mean, I have, but it's just better with Mike's. Not sponsored. But I do a lot of box delivery of proteins. So Force of Nature, Pasture Bird, that also keeps our prices down. We love our Dana Point Farmers Market. Same sort of a thing. We're looking for veggies, fruits, dips. We have this awesome place by my house called the Ecology Center, which is the farm. So that's kind of our go-to farm. And we love, it's a regenerative farm. We love supporting them. I'm of the mindset that mean, I'm always in the same outfits if you've ever seen me on TV or like on an interview. Like I have a very small closet. I really love to spend my money on food and wellness, and I'd rather buy an infrared sauna than a bag. Like that's just who I am. And I think getting clear on what is the most important to you and your family, whether it's time or travel or, just like building a home that you love and like having it be cozy or focusing on food and health, like get clear with your family on what's most important and then prioritize your purchases that way. And if you can simplify it, like Chris and I actually, we have a Whole Foods by Us, and we have a joint list. So you can join in the Amazon app and have your joint grocery list and all the things you normally buy. So that really helps us too. We try to tag team and do it together.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. I've learned a ton. The half an hour flew by. I hope that you guys all took some really key takeaways. For both Kelly and Catherine, they have books to sign over there. So there's books that you can purchase and they can sign them. For me, I'm actually hosting a free masterclass tomorrow called The Art of Unlearning, which is what 1% of top performers know that you don't. So if you follow me on Instagram, I'm at Mindfulness Matters. You can get all the info there. So thank you guys.